Awareness is a strange kind of light. It illuminates everything, every flaw, every intention, every fracture beneath the surface. To be too aware is to live with the lights always on, even when your soul longs for darkness, for rest, for the comfort of not knowing. Most people move through life with just enough perception to survive. But those who are too aware, they see everything, feel everything, and understand too much. And that, while it sounds like a gift, often feels like a quiet curse. Because when you see too deeply, it becomes harder to simply be. Every word carries a subtext. Every silence hides a meaning. Every gesture feels like a signal. For the overly aware mind, life is not a collection of simple moments. It's a series of invisible equations, constantly being solved in the background. Why did they pause before answering? Why did that smile fade half a second too soon? Why does this room feel different today, even though everything looks the same? It's exhausting to live in constant analysis. And yet, those who are too aware cannot help themselves. Their minds are wired to see patterns, emotional, behavioral, psychological. They read what others ignore. They hear what others never say. They sense moods like weather changes. It's not a choice. It's simply how they exist. Psychologically, hyperawareness is tied to several fascinating mechanisms. One of them is meta-cognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking. For most, this is occasional. For the hyper-aware, it's perpetual. They don't just feel emotions, they analyze why they feel them, how they feel them, and whether those feelings are valid. This second layer of observation creates depth, but also distance. Because when you're constantly watching yourself, you're rarely truly living in the moment. It's like dancing while constantly checking your reflection in the mirror. You might perfect the steps, but you lose the music. People who are too aware often notice contradictions in human behavior, in themselves and in others. They recognize that people don't always mean what they say, that kindness can be transactional, that love often carries hidden expectations. And with that knowledge comes a subtle loneliness, because when you see behind the curtain, you can't always go back to enjoying the show. There's a quiet grief in that realization, that innocence and simplicity are luxuries reserved for those who don't question too deeply. The aware mind knows that every relationship is a dance between projection and perception, that most communication is miscommunication dressed as understanding. They can feel when someone's affection is fading long before words confirm it. They can sense tension in a room without anyone speaking. Their empathy becomes almost telepathic, but it also becomes a burden. It's not that they want to overthink, it's that they can't stop feeling. Awareness amplifies sensitivity. And sensitivity, while beautiful, makes existence sharp-edged. Psychologists often describe this as heightened interoception, an increased awareness of internal states. People who are too aware don't just notice external signals. They feel microshifts inside their own bodies, a racing heart, a tightening chest, a flicker of anxiety, and they interpret them as data. But in doing so, they sometimes confuse reflection with rumination. The line between awareness and obsession blurs. That's the paradox of the hyper-aware. The very skill that allows them to understand the world can also alienate them from it. You can see this in how they talk. Cautiously, deliberately. They replay conversations long after they end, searching for hidden meanings. They often know what someone meant, even if it wasn't said. They're quick to sense manipulation, but slow to trust that what they see is innocent. Because once you've seen too much of human behavior, the little hypocrisies, the half-truths, the masks, it's hard not to brace for disappointment. But awareness isn't just social, it's existential. The deeply aware notice time passing in ways others don't. They feel the fragility of every moment. They sense the impermanence of people and places. While others rush through life's noise, they hear the faint ticking of the clock behind it all. They recognize how brief and delicate everything is, and that awareness makes them both grateful and melancholic. Grateful because they see the beauty in small things. Melancholic because they know nothing lasts. That's why many people who are too aware often feel out of sync with the world. They can be surrounded by laughter and still feel slightly detached, not because they don't feel joy, but because they're aware of its temporary nature. They know how quickly joy turns to silence, how every high has its echo. There's an invisible wisdom that grows in such minds, the kind that doesn't shout but observes. It's the wisdom of someone who's seen both the surface and the depths, who understands how fragile human motives can be. These people rarely judge because they understand too much. They see how pain shapes behavior, how fear masquerades as pride, how love hides beneath anger. Awareness gives them compassion, but it also gives them fatigue. It's hard to unsee what you've seen. And yet, people who are too aware often try to tone it down. They try to act normal, to laugh without analyzing, to speak without filtering every word, to rest without reflecting. But awareness isn't something you can switch off. It's not a tool, it's a lens. It colors everything, from how they perceive friendships to how they interpret silence. Even joy becomes introspective. They might find themselves happy and then question why they're happy, whether it's authentic, whether it will last. It's not that they sabotage themselves, it's that their mind is trained to notice patterns, even in peace. There's a certain beauty in that awareness though. These are the people who catch subtle moments, a trembling lip, a quiet act of kindness, the way someone looks away when they're hiding sadness. They understand human nature deeply, often intuitively, and that understanding can make them remarkable listeners, creators, and thinkers. But it also means they often feel emotionally older than they are, as if they've lived multiple lifetimes in one. This kind of awareness tends to develop early, often in childhood, when someone learns to observe in order to survive, emotionally, socially, or psychologically. Maybe they grew up in unpredictable environments where reading the room wasn't optional but necessary. Maybe they learned that being alert helped them stay safe. Over time, that vigilance evolved into awareness, and awareness into over-awareness. What once was protection became perception. And that's the subtle tragedy. That deep awareness often comes from deep adaptation. The ability to sense what others miss was once a shield and later became a window. As adults, these individuals carry that same hypervigilant empathy. They can predict outcomes before they happen. They can sense conflict before words are spoken. They can feel guilt, shame, or discomfort even when it isn't theirs. Their emotional antennas are always raised, tuned to frequencies others don't even hear. It's why they often crave peace so deeply. Because their inner world is so loud. They can sense when someone's lying, not because they want to, but because their brain has learned to piece together every micro-expression, every tonal shift. But awareness has another layer, self-awareness. Those who are too aware not only read others, but also dissect themselves. They question every emotion, every motive, every word they speak. It's an internal echo chamber of reflection. And while this can lead to profound growth, it can also lead to paralysis. Because when you overanalyze your own existence, spontaneity disappears. Every decision becomes a moral or psychological puzzle. Every emotion must be explained. You start living life through the lens of observation instead of experience. This is what psychologists call analysis paralysis, when thinking becomes so constant that action slows down. For the hyperaware, this isn't laziness, it's exhaustion. Their mind has already lived through 10 scenarios before the world has lived through one. And yet, awareness, even when heavy, carries its own kind of grace. It's what allows people to grow faster, to love more consciously, to learn without denial. People who are too aware are often the ones who notice the patterns in society, the contradictions in culture, the flaws in human systems. They make deep thinkers, artists, philosophers, people who give language to what others only feel. But there's a fine line between awareness and over-identification, between seeing the truth and drowning in it. And that's where the truly aware must learn a new kind of wisdom, the wisdom of letting go. Because awareness without boundaries becomes suffering, but awareness with compassion becomes understanding. You don't have to interpret every silence. You don't have to predict every ending. Sometimes awareness is knowing when to stop thinking, when to let life be what it is. Those who are too aware must learn the art of softness, not ignorance, but acceptance. The ability to know deeply without carrying it all. Because knowing everything isn't strength if it steals your peace. When you can see the world clearly, your challenge isn't understanding it. It's learning to stay gentle while you do. There comes a point when awareness starts to turn inward, looping back on itself like a mirror, reflecting another mirror. You begin to notice that you're noticing. You analyze your own awareness, your own reactions, even your need to analyze them. It's like standing in front of 1,000 reflections of yourself, each asking the same question. Why can't I just exist without thinking so much about existing? But that question itself is the core of being overly aware. It's self-reflection turned into self-surveillance. You are the watcher and the watched, the thinker and the thought. And while that might sound poetic, it can quietly drain your energy because the mind is never at rest. People who are too aware live in two worlds at once. The external one that everyone sees and the internal one that never stops narrating. The smallest event becomes a story with multiple interpretations. A compliment might be genuine or strategic. A friend's distance might mean nothing or everything. The brain never stops scanning for meaning. And meaning, while beautiful, is also heavy. Because the more meaning you find, the less peace you often feel. There's a concept in psychology called cognitive empathy. The ability to understand others' perspectives, even when they don't explain them. People who are too aware have this in abundance. They can imagine how someone else feels, why they act the way they do, and what they might be hiding. But empathy has a shadow side. When you constantly see through everyone's eyes, you start to lose sight of your own. You begin to live as an observer in your own life. Always understanding, rarely belonging. You understand why someone hurt you, so you excuse it. You understand why someone left, so you never let yourself grieve. You understand why people fail you, so you stop expecting them not to. That's what awareness without boundaries does. It turns understanding into justification and compassion into quiet self-abandonment. The overly aware often feel invisible, not because no one sees them, but because they're too busy seeing everyone else. They anticipate people's needs before those people even voice them. They pick their words carefully to avoid triggering discomfort. They constantly adjust their tone, expression, and timing to maintain harmony. To others, this looks like emotional intelligence, and it is, but it's also emotional exhaustion. Because when you're always the one who understands, who reads between the lines, who calms the storm, no one thinks you need shelter. The irony is that awareness doesn't make you invincible. It makes you porous. Everything seeps through. Every tone, every shift, every unspoken tension. And while others might recover from emotional turbulence quickly, the overly aware carry it home. They replay it in their minds, analyze what they could have done differently, and search for meaning that may not even exist. That's the unseen fatigue of high awareness, the constant mental labor of decoding the world. Even beauty can feel intense. A sunset isn't just pretty, it's a reminder of impermanence. A conversation isn't just enjoyable, it's a psychological tapestry. A small rejection isn't just disappointment, it's data to analyze. And in that endless decoding, spontaneity gets lost. It's not that overly aware people can't enjoy the moment. It's that they're always aware they're enjoying it. They can't simply laugh without also noticing how rare laughter has become. They can't simply love without seeing how fragile it is. Their emotions are real, but always surrounded by the echo of awareness. Many of them describe this as feeling like they're living one step removed from life. Close enough to touch it, but not close enough to dissolve into it. Neuroscientifically, some of this is tied to hyperactivity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for self-reflection and prediction. When overactive, it causes a constant forward simulation. An endless what-if machine. You anticipate outcomes, read microcues, and calculate possibilities. This helps in creativity and empathy, but can lead to chronic overthinking and anxiety. That's why awareness and anxiety often walk hand in hand. Not because awareness causes fear, but because the mind that sees too much can't stop imagining what could go wrong. It's like standing in a room full of open doors, your attention constantly shifting between all the possible paths, never allowing rest. And yet, within that constant motion lies an incredible gift. People who are too aware often become the quiet stabilizers of others. They hold space for emotion. They notice what no one else does. They can look at someone's eyes and know what words won't come. In a world often ruled by distraction, their presence is grounding. But awareness without self-compassion becomes martyrdom. The challenge isn't to see less, but to see without carrying it all. You have to learn the skill of selective perception, the ability to let certain things pass through you instead of staying within you. Because not every silence needs decoding. Not every expression needs interpretation. Not every mood needs repair. Sometimes people are just tired, not distant. Sometimes life is just random, not symbolic. This is the hardest lesson for the overly aware, to realize that not everything has a hidden meaning. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary, because awareness teaches you to see, but peace teaches you to release. You don't lose your depth by letting go. You just stop drowning in it. And the truth is, hyperawareness can become a form of control. It's an unconscious attempt to stay safe by staying prepared. If you can predict everything, maybe nothing will hurt you. If you can understand everyone, maybe no one will betray you. But this illusion of control often backfires. Because to control life, you have to step outside it. You start observing instead of living. To heal from over-awareness is to make peace with unpredictability, to allow yourself to be surprised, to not know, to not anticipate. It's to rediscover the art of curiosity without fear. You start realizing that not every moment needs to be understood. Some moments are meant to be felt. People who are too aware sometimes think they're broken because they can't stop analyzing. But they're not broken. They're just tuned to a higher frequency of consciousness. The real work isn't to turn it off, but to learn how to live with it gently. To know when awareness serves you and when it starts to suffocate you. And this is where emotional maturity comes in. The ability to see clearly, but still act kindly. To feel deeply, but still let go lightly. Being too aware can make love complicated, because you don't just see the person. You see their patterns, their wounds, their unspoken fears. You see the future possibilities of heartbreak even while falling for them. You sense distance before it's spoken. You can predict withdrawal before it happens. That kind of foresight makes connection both beautiful and terrifying. It takes courage to stay open when you can see all the ways things could fall apart. But real strength isn't in building walls. It's in choosing vulnerability despite awareness. To love with eyes open, knowing it may not last, but giving it anyway. That's what separates those who are crushed by awareness from those who are transformed by it. Over time, something beautiful happens. Awareness, when paired with acceptance, turns from burden to wisdom. You stop trying to change people and start simply witnessing them. You stop fighting your thoughts and start observing them without judgment. You realize that awareness isn't a curse, resistance is. When you stop resisting your own perception, awareness becomes peace. You begin to understand that not everything you notice needs action. Not every insight needs expression. Some truths are simply meant to be held, quietly, like a secret between you and the universe. And in that surrender, life softens again. You start to feel joy in the smallest things, not because you've ignored the pain, but because you've learned to coexist with it. You no longer need to mute your awareness. You just stop letting it control the volume. Awareness becomes less about analyzing and more about witnessing. Less about protection, more about connection. You realize that the goal isn't to understand everything. It's to feel safe enough not to. Because peace doesn't come from knowing, it comes from trusting. Trusting that life doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful. Trusting that people can surprise you in good ways, not just bad. Trusting that not every silence means something is wrong. When that trust returns, awareness transforms. It no longer feels like brightness that blinds, but like light that warms. The overly aware begin to rediscover simplicity. They start saying, maybe I don't need to interpret that. They start laughing without checking if it's appropriate. They start feeling without translating. They start existing again, not perfectly, but fully. And that's the quiet redemption of awareness. Because the truth is, awareness isn't something to fix, it's something to refine. When guided by compassion, it becomes clarity. When softened by humility, it becomes wisdom. When balanced with trust, it becomes love. You realize you were never meant to turn off your mind. You were meant to find stillness within it. And perhaps that's what it means to be truly aware. Not to see everything, but to see clearly what matters. To notice pain, but also beauty. To recognize endings, but also beginnings. To understand others deeply, without losing yourself in them. People who are too aware carry a rare kind of light. It's not the blinding light of perfection, but the quiet glow of understanding. They are the ones who see through masks, yet still choose kindness. They know the fragility of love, yet still give it freely. They know how short life is, yet still find poetry in the passing days. If you're one of them, if you've ever felt too awake for your own peace, know this. There's nothing wrong with you. You just feel more than most. You think deeper than most. You notice what most overlook. Your challenge isn't to dim your awareness. It's to hold it gently, to let it coexist with peace, to allow yourself to rest in a world that never stops moving. You don't need to unsee what you've seen. You just need to stop fearing it. Because in the end, awareness isn't the weight. Attachment to understanding is. When you release that, awareness becomes your greatest ally. It becomes intuition, empathy, artistry. It becomes the lens through which you not only see the world, but truly feel it. And maybe, just maybe, the people who are too aware are the ones keeping the world awake. They remind us that beneath all the noise and distraction, life is still something sacred. So yes, awareness can hurt, but it's also what lets you recognize beauty before it fades, love before it's gone, and meaning before it disappears. And that's not a curse. That's the deepest form of living there is.